Okay, I guess that works, and if it doesn't work, we make it work. That's the YouTube way. Okay, hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking, and not Barry, but we have Larry over here, Barry's second cousin, who's going to be my sidekick for the week. I'm visiting relatives right now, so this is going to be my impromptu office until I get back home. It's not so bad, though. I'm actually not sitting on the edge of my bed for these videos. I actually have a chair. Woo! Whoa, I almost knocked my laptop over. Okay, but I have a chair, alright, so that's nice. And I know yesterday when I did the review, and I know, by the way, that everybody is like, you know, Tekking, you don't have to make videos when you're on vacation. It's fine. But, you know, I just can't stop thinking about King, you know, because after the chapter and everything, we got a bunch of lore dropped after chapter 1022 involving King. Marco alluded to King being a part of a fire-wielding race that lived on top of the Red Line, like a very, very long time ago. And even the way that Marco spoke about it, it was kind of like, you know, oh, this is just a rumor, this is just gossip, this is something I probably just heard on Whitebeard's ship a very long time ago. Because Marco was on the crew ever since he was 15, I think, and he was an apprentice pirate back then, but he already had the Phoenix powers during Odin's flashback, so Marco might have joined, you know, years before that even. Maybe Marco was the same age as, like, Buggy or Shanks. Like, Buggy and Shanks were, like, 8 or 9 years old when they joined Roger's ship, okay? But suffice to say, Marco has been on that ship for a very, very long time, most of his life, and maybe Whitebeard at some point told them the story. Maybe Whitebeard himself heard it from Rox, because Rox is supposed to have this, like, the crazy power and all this, you know, knowledge of the world, maybe. And so maybe Rox at one point told, you know, Edward Newgate and Charlotte Linlin, Big Mom, and Kaido, and okay, I don't know if I should scream it. Wang Zhi told Wang Zhi. He's like, yeah, back in the day, there was a tribe of people that lived on top of the Red Line, and they could control fire, you know? Marco didn't say a name. He didn't really go into more detail than that. That's really kind of like all he knew. But, you know, meeting King and seeing someone that could actually manipulate fire the way that he has that pyrokinesis ability, which, by the way, that's confirmed at this point to just be King's own ability. It was kind of up for debate, like, whether or not he was using, like, a flame dial, or if he had, like, well, we knew he had an Ancient Zone model Pteranodon, but I guess it's always possible he could have had, like, some mythical zone all along, like it was just like Oda, like, oh, it was an Ancient Zone, but it's actually a mythical zone model Rodan, or something like that. But no, that's not really likely, but something else somebody did bring up, like, well, Queen is, of course, the mechanic and everything in Kaido's Beast Pirates, so maybe Queen created some sort of, like, flamethrower device. And also the fact that King is, like, constantly wearing, like, the Gimp suit. You know, he's into some, like, really rough kind of situations, so maybe that's, like, his idea of, like, pleasure, like, having, you know, some, like, flames constantly on his back was just something that he enjoyed. I don't really know. I don't judge. But no, it's a situation where he's literally able to just, and we saw it in the last chapter, too. I mean, we saw it before this, but it was really just, you know, thrown at us, like, you know, he can just summon fireballs, like whenever he wants. He, like, grabbed one of the gifters and, like, lit them on fire and, like, you know, traitors will not be tolerated, and it just tossed them away, right? So I can't stop thinking about King and the relationship to the Red Line, so let's just go with this, okay? So this could go one way or the other. Actually, it can go a bunch of different ways. But okay, I was under the impression for a very, very long time that the Red Line was, in fact, a artificial construct. Okay, just because we don't really see any place like the Red Line on the entire planet of One Piece except the Red Line itself, right? It's made out of a very special kind of red rock, and we don't see that red rock. Oh, Red Rock, that's the name of one of Luffy's attacks, actually, so there you go. But no, we don't see that kind of stone or that ore anywhere else in the world. Like, none of the other islands are made out of this red dirt that make up the Red Line, right? And so it really just seems out of place in a planet that was like, you know, islands are scattered everywhere, and some of the islands get really big to the point where they might as well be the size of continents, but they're still just islands dotting the world. And it also, I mean, that was kind of the origin for geography is everything, which, by the way, my uncle, so my family is Ukrainian, and my uncle actually has a map of Ukraine over there, and so that's really cool that it's like geography lives on in the family. It's always there, right? But no, like, geography really is everything, and the origin of that phrase that you know, that's the first time I used it on the channel, was because I was talking about Marijois being perfectly situated on top of this giant red wall that effectively allows them to control the entire world, because it would be impossible, you know, I mean, Fisher Tiger was able to do it, but there was a lot of difficulty there, and Fisher Tiger was only one person, but it would be pretty much impossible without flying machines to get all the way up the red line and like launch a full frontal assault on Marijois. So effectively, the red line geography is everything. They're protected. The Germa were able to do that, but even if you were able to get a giant army on top of the red line, they still have the advantage, right? Marijois, because they're the ones on top. You know, if there is some kind of invasion being attempted, like if the Germa decided to take their slug ships and just go up the side of the red line and like where the red port is and go right in and invade Marijois, they could launch cannonballs down. I mean, they could destroy those ships on the way up there. So geography really is everything. And I just always thought, like, the red line, wow, this seems strategically placed for, number one, Marijois to serve as like its fortress wall, and number two, to divide the world, because you already have the Grand Line as an ocean current, and the Grand Line might be artificial too. Maybe the creation of the red line also created the Grand Line, you know, forming an X, you know, X marks the spot, I don't know, but then also, you know, separating the world into 4 different quadrants, the 4 blues, okay? So it just seems like, and I understand this is anime, this is manga, this is a fantasy world that Oda crafted, but it just seems really, really convenient for the world government, like, that this layout exists the way it is, because it's pretty much just like, hey, anybody that can build a fortress on top of that red mountain can basically control the entire world, because there's no way that anybody would, you know, be able to invade and overthrow you. And that's, you know, of course, where the celestial dragons live and everything. So then I started to think, okay, if the red line is artificially created, how the hell would they manage to actually build something like that? Like, obviously, you couldn't just build it like you built Impel Down or something like that. You know, maybe it involved some of the ancient weapons or some technique that was lost to time or anything. Now, I'm not really sure on the mechanics here, but I just want to talk about one thing. You know how islands and mountains and certain land masses can be created in our world, in the ocean? Volcanic eruptions. You see where I'm going with this. Okay, so I started to think about this last night. What if the world government or the ancient kingdom or whatever existed back during the Void Century, we're not really focused on the why, or we're more focused on the how, okay, for right now, okay? So what if they had some ability to create a bunch, like a chain reaction of volcanic eruptions all along this one specific line, going around, circumnavigating the entire planet. And then they did that, and it's like boom, 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 and like rising Earth out of the ocean, whatever, and it created the red line doing that. And I bring up volcanoes because King, of course, he is the wildfire. That is his title. And he has the ability to manipulate fire, as with the rest of his race, the rest of his tribe that come from on top of the red line. So if they were born out of volcanic magma, I mean, that would be perfect, right? They might still very well be some kind of subterranean race. Some of the translations, at least I think at the beginning, it was kind of dubious whether or not they came from on top of the red line or they were from inside of the red line, okay? And I brought this up in the review because other than Marijois, we have not seen any sort of settlement or village or cities or farmland or anything on top of the red line. Now, that's probably by design right now, because the world government, that would be the only way that you would be able to attack Marijois is if you also lived on the red line. So it makes sense that the first thing that the Celestial Dragons would do upon establishing their capital on top of the red line would be to wipe out every other civilization that's on top of the red line, right? You know, even if they're on the other side of the planet, you know, it makes it, you know, dangerous. They could attack you at any time, right, if there was another civilization up there. So, I don't know, it might be a situation where King's race goes back thousands upon thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years, where, and it might not even be, that's the thing, like, it doesn't have to be artificial, like they chain reactioned all the volcanoes, like they pushed a button and, like, built a device or something to do that. It could be a naturally occurring thing, like that might have been how the red line was created, maybe millions of years ago, just like how the continents were created, you know, millions and billions of years ago on our Earth, right? Maybe a bunch of volcanoes erupted, this giant wall arose out of the ground, and so King's race set up shop there, and they lived there for, you know, millennia upon millennia. But then the Void Century happened, and then Marijois was built, and it's like, oh, hey, like, okay, this is a pretty good fortress we built. Is there any other civilizations that live on top of the red line that could maybe challenge our castle Pangea? And they're like, yeah, there's a race of fire manipulators over there. Be like, maybe we should get rid of them. And so that's probably what happened. Now, this could have happened right after the Void Century, so maybe like right at the tail end of that, like, you know, 800 years ago, this could have happened. And, you know, we don't know how old King is, and we don't even know how his race ages, right? This could be a thing where King could be over 1,000 years old, but his race is just very long-lived, okay? That's the only thing, because Well, it would have probably taken a long time. Like, if the world government began to purge King's race, okay, and began to, like, knock him off the red line or whatever, I'm sure King might have not have been the only survivor. Some of them would have been managed, and they have wings, so if King can fly. He can fly because he's a pteranodon, but he can also fly because he has the wings. Maybe as soon as their civilization was being wiped out, a bunch of King's race, got together and they left the red line, and they tried to live other places in the world, but they were still persecuted, and they were seen as maybe demons or devils. That follows a lot of themes of One Piece, just notably, Robin, the demon child. We just addressed that in a couple chapters ago. But yeah, if King's race really do look demonic or something, because King's always wearing the suit, covered head to toe in the leather, but if he takes that off, he might have maybe like a lizard or like demonic kind of appearance. And, it's the same thing with fishmen and merfolk. The citizens of the One Piece world are just like inherently afraid of fishmen and merfolk sometimes because of their appearance, right? And so if King really has like this demon devil appearance, it'd be like, oh, they would be persecuted and wiped out by the citizens on top of the world government, right? So it could have been a situation where just over the centuries, eventually it just got whittled down, so King is the only one remaining, or he's the only one that we know about. Maybe there could be some other ones hiding somewhere, but we just don't know. So, he could be like, 55 years old, like they just age normally, or he could be like 800 years old and be back from the time when they were initially kicked off of the red line. But that makes a lot of sense, right? Now, the fire manipulation, that makes me think, like, what does the red line have to do with fire, or the fact that King's race can manipulate fire? Does it have anything to do with it, other than the fact it's the red line and, like, fire is, like, red, Not really, but typically it's, like, yellow or blue, but, typically in anime, fire is red, so let's just go with that. That's why I thought of the volcano idea. Maybe King's race at the beginning, maybe they were, like, the first race that inhabited the Earth. The only question there is, why do they have wings? If they were like a subterranean race or something like that, why did they have like, big feathery wings like the Skypians and the Bjerkins did and everything like that? I'm not really sure. But if they were the first race that, like, lived on the Earth, and then the volcanoes maybe brought them to the surface because of the red line and they lived there, I mean, we're going to get a really messed up backstory with King. I just feel that right now. I feel like we're going to get a backstory where King does not seem to be a very vocal guy, you know what I mean? He doesn't seem to talk very much. I mean, he'll, like, you're a traitor to the Beast Pirates, or he'll, bad talk Queen or whatever. They sort of have, like, a back and forth. But he doesn't seem to be, like, the kind of guy that's going to sit you down and be like, let me tell you the story of my past. Let me tell you the story of my race. Gives the name of his race and what happened to them. The only way that could happen is maybe if, like, Zoro's fighting King, and Zoro starts to talk bad about Kaido, and be like, Kaido is this horrible person, Luffy's gonna bring him down, and, he's gonna be the Pirate King, and King sort of takes offense to that. He's just like, how dare you talk bad about our captain? How dare you say these horrible things about Kaido? Kaido's the one that saved me. And then he goes on the tirade talking about, my race is called the, whatever they're called, and be like, we used to live on the red line for thousands of years. We bothered no one. We did nothing wrong. And then all of a sudden, the world government just built their castle on top of the Red Mountain and began to exterminate all of my kind. I'm the only one remaining. That would actually be very impactful if King was, like, centuries old, because it would be similar to Brook's story, where Brook was, all by himself for 50 years, except dial that up to, like, 500, 600, 700, 800 years for King, and be like, for hundreds of years, I wandered the ocean. Everywhere I went, they would always attack me and try to persecute me. And eventually, I just decided to just live in a cave for a few centuries. And then that's where Kaido found me. He stumbled in drunk one day, and he found me in a cave. And he's like, you seem pretty strong. You want to work for me? Second in command? And then I joined him, okay? But it's because of him that I'm even here right now, and I have purpose in my life or something. So maybe that's the way King could explain his backstory. But I don't see him just out of nowhere sitting down and explaining it to Zoro or Sanji or anybody, unless Queen explains it, or they find out more about it. They find records somewhere. Robin finds out something. Maybe Robin would know, because I don't think Robin has ever met King yet. I don't think she has. I mean, she might know of his title, but never actually met him and got to know, oh, he's a member of that race that can manipulate fire. Okay, maybe Robin has heard of them before in a textbook somewhere, but, unless Robin actually encounters King and explains this to the Straw Hats, which I think Robin is kind of done for fighting right now. But yeah, there's that situation there. You know, I feel like there has to be a connection to the Skypians in some way. Now remember, all of the Skypians did originally come from the moon. You know, the Skypians, the Bjerkans, and the Shandorians all originated from the moon, came to the Earth. Some of them settled, the Bjerkans and Skypians settled in the sky, and then the Shandorians made it all the way to the Blue Sea, right? And so there's different kinds of Sky Island cultures all over the world, right? And so maybe there was a Sky Island that lived above the Red Line, and that's where King's race was originally from, but then they were outcasted to the surface, or to the Red Line, and so they were like the exiles of their tribe, and they were living there. And then the world government showed up maybe later and then knocked them off, or something like that. But it's actually really cool, because like the Red Line has never been spoke about as a place where people live, other than the people of Marijois, and then the Red Port, and then Fishman Island on the bottom. So it's like, if you left Marijois and you just kept walking, now of course, keep in mind, the Red Line is really high up. We don't know exactly how high it is. We know it's 10,000 meters from sea level down to Fishman Island, but we don't know how high up it is from that sea level all the way up to the top where Marijois is. I assumed it was another 10,000, like 10,000 down and then 10,000 up, but that can't be the case, because that would put the Red Line at the same sky level as you know, the White Sea. And you'd think that the citizens of Marijois, like the Celestial Dragons, would be dealing with the Skypians a lot more, or the people from the Sky Islands. So I don't think it's up that high, but it's still like maybe 5,000-6,000 feet up, 5,000-6,000 meters up. But it would be very brutal to live up there. You know, Marijois is sort of like built, you know, with the travelvators, and it sort of has this environment for people to live in luxury. But when it comes to the rest of it, it's probably just like a bunch of rocky mountains and like high velocity winds and snow. And as Nami did reveal after the time skip, the Red Line is not one solid climate. It's literally a bunch of the islands all stacked together. So like how the Grand Line has, you know, autumn, winter, spring, and summer islands, that's basically the Red Line. Like, this segment of the Red Line is summer, this segment is fall, this segment is winter, and it just continues like that all the way around the planet. So if that's the situation, maybe it was artificial, bunch of islands like smashed together or something like that, but it would also mean the climate is random. So I like to think now, on top of the Red Line, there are just a bunch of abandoned cities, maybe like actually chiseled into the rockwork of the Red Line, like cave and networks and stuff, where King's tribe used to live, and they're just abandoned, and the rest of the Red Line is just, you know, really brutal, no one can live there. And the area where Marijois is has kind of been terraformed to an extent where they can grow crops and they can live there comfortably, but the rest of it is very brutal. But anyway, yeah, that's the video. I just wanted to talk a little bit about King, because it's something that we've wanted to know for a while, and it also ties it. That's what Oda does, and I love it. I love it when he does that, because it's like, oh, okay, you want to know about King? Great, I'll tie that into the Red Line. Please do, Oda. That would be splendid. But anyway, yeah, thanks for watching the video, everybody. I'll have a few more out this week. But yeah, have a good one. This will be Tekking and Larry. You want to say bye, Larry? You want to try to do an outro? Okay. Anyway, this is what I have to work with, okay? Have a good night, everybody. Tekking and Larry, signing out.